Garfield. Truly one of the great universal constants, right up there with death and taxes. This iconic lasagna-loving, Monday-hating cat has been adapted into every single form of media imaginable. From the original comic strips, to TV specials, multiple animated series, movies, every single form of merchandise under the sun, and of course video games. If it exists, there's most likely a Garfield version of it, and quite honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way. If there's one word I could use to describe my relationship with the Garfield franchise, it would be comfort. Sure, basically nothing that's come out of this franchise in the past 20 years is good at all, but for whatever reason, it just makes me happy, you know? It's like comfort food. Ever since it first took off, merchandising and branding has been a huge focus for the Garfield franchise. The series creator, Jim Davis, literally founded a company, Paws Inc., largely for the purpose of managing and merchandising the Garfield brand. The sheer amount of Garfield stuff that you can buy is ridiculous, and is where most of the series' profit comes from. Obviously, this absolute blitzkrieg of Garfield content had to establish a presence on the growing internet, and that's where our story truly begins. Launched in 1996, Garfield.com was the center of the web for all things Garf. It of course showcased various Garfield goods for purchase, but there was plenty of other stuff to keep you occupied. Every Garfield comic strip was archived on the site, you could easily look them up by specific date or keywords, even Jim Davis's lesser-known series US Acres was there. There were pages where you could brush up on your Garfield lore, read about the characters and series history, but obviously what we're interested in was the games. Yes, Garfield.com played host to many a Garfield Flash game over the years, and man, these were delightful. This was back in the dearly missed era where if you were making a website marketing something towards kids, you had to throw a handful of web games on there, and these Garfield.com ones were, in general, pretty dang good for what they were. They were simple, fun, and memorable, and that's really all Flash games need to be. Who could ever forget Lasagna from Heaven? Or the legendary Garfield Ping Pong, which for some reason was sponsored by an actual pet healthcare program? What? And of course your standard coloring books and jigsaw puzzles, even a Garfield comic creator, which honestly I wish there was a little bit more to. My favorite of these would definitely have to be Punt the Pooch. Yep, they made a game about kicking Odie off the table. Very true to Garfield's character, and the sound effects make it way more entertaining than it probably should be. My second choice would probably go to Sheep Shot, very unique and fun concept. And I would be sorely mistaken to not bring up the certified hood classic known as Dingleball, which originally had its own website domain set up, which was referenced in a July 2000 comic strip. Isn't that fun when a piece of media has a URL or even a phone number made up as a joke, and then the company actually buys the domain and puts something funny or interesting on it? Good times. And that's how it remained for the next 2 decades. Garfield.com was gradually updated over the years with new designs and games to play, you could always hop on and read the daily comic strip, and the world was at peace. That was until August 2019, when suddenly, everything changed. Out of nowhere, it was announced that Paws Inc. would be acquired by Viacom, and Garfield himself would be adopted into the Nickelodeon family. Truly, a fate worse than death. Viacom made some changes to how the Garfield brand was portrayed, and one of their first orders of business was completely shutting down Garfield.com. Ever since June 2020, the domain now just redirects to Nickelodeon's website. So this is what emptiness feels like. Sure, the games were probably gonna go anyway with the death of Flash looming, but come on. The whole website? What kind of world do we live in where you can't even read the Garfield comic on Garfield.com anymore? The untimely death of Garfield.com reminds us that you truly don't know what you have until it's gone. Was it worth it to get Garfield and Nick All-Star Brawl? I'm not sure. Thankfully, most if not all of the Garfield online games have been archived, including of course on old reliable Flashpoint. So let's get back to the topic at hand. The majority of the Garfield.com games were just simple, fun, high-score based romps, or entertaining little distractions. But there was one, or two, that stood out among the rest. Remember earlier that insane rambling about how Garfield is my comfort character or whatever? Well, what if Garfield were to step out of that comfort zone and delve into something a bit more scary? Yup, Garfield's Scary Scavenger Hunt and its sequel, easily the most iconic and well-remembered games of the Garfield.com catalog. A strange concept at first glance for sure, but dig a little deeper and you'll realize Garfield is really no stranger to spooky stuff. Additionally, Flash games based on holidays is a tried and tested formula, with Halloween ones being very popular, second only to Christmas of course. So really, why wouldn't this game exist? And since today is not only Halloween, but also a Monday, there really is no better day to take a look back at the Garfield Scary Scavenger Hunt duology. Garfield's Scary Scavenger Hunt was developed by the Dimensions Edge Incorporated, or DEDGE to their friends, a now defunct company who made Flash games and other web thingies for all sorts of different clients, including several games for Garfield.com. It was released way back in late 2002, which honestly surprised me. We don't know the exact date, but the earliest capture on the Wayback Machine with Scary Scavenger Hunt I could find is dated September 2002, which would make the game 20 years old now. That's crazy. Although the game remained on Garfield.com all the way until it was shut down, which makes it feel kinda timeless to me. No matter when you visited the site, Garfield's Scary Scavenger Hunt would always be there. It was always one of the most highlighted games too. I remember playing this game at school in like 6th grade, but weirdly not how you'd think, playing it during free time or while ignoring my work. No, my computer lab teacher literally assigned us to play this game. She was like, okay class, we're gonna do something fun today, go to Garfield.com, and I was like, you mean the funny cat from the newspaper? Must have been a Friday and near Halloween or something, I don't know. Anyway, that's enough rambling about the funny haha lasagna cat for the next few hours at least. So let's finally get into Garfield's Scary Scavenger Hunt itself and see just how scary it really is. Booting up Gush, we see Garfield approaching a foreboding haunted mansion holding the game's instructions. We learn there are 7 boxes of goodies, specifically 5 boxes of donuts and 2 boxes of muffins, hidden throughout the haunted house that we're tasked with finding. Garfield seems frightened at the thought of a haunted house, but ultimately decides it's worth it for the donuts. I just looked up priorities in the dictionary and yep, there he is. So instead of going to a grocery store or bakery or literally anywhere else you can get donuts, Garfield does the sensible thing and decides to go to a haunted house. On that note, we're plopped right outside the mansion's front door. So, Garfield's Scary Scavenger Hunt is a point-and-click search and find adventure game where Garfield goes on a, you'll never guess, scavenger hunt, possibly of the scary variety, in a haunted house. Garfield must explore the mansion's rooms and solve various puzzles in order to find all the pastries. The list for the scavenger hunt is displayed on the left side of the screen at all times, with each item being crossed out once you find them. Once you've collected all 7 of them, you win. Simple as that. You can grab them in any order, which adds a bit more variety for repeat playthroughs. There are a variety of other items, shown on the right side of the screen, which are used for puzzles and required to find some of the goodies. These include different colored keys to open colored doors, a piece of cheese to give to a mouse, a flashlight to see in the basement, and a shovel to dig up a box of donuts.
Am I really gonna defile this grave for
donuts?
Of course I am!
Controls are dead simple. Use the arrow keys or on-screen arrows to move Garfield around and click on stuff to interact with it. There is this awesome tech though, where you can hold left or right on the arrow key and then click up or down on the on-screen arrow at the same time to move diagonally, which actually makes you go a lot faster, perfect for the speedrunning scene. You can click on furniture and other objects of interest to examine them, and sometimes you'll find something to help you progress, but most of the time you'll just get spooked. Yep, this mansion is filled with all sorts of ghosts, vampires, skeletons, monsters, and other spooky guys lurking just out of sight. They won't attack Garfield physically, but they will emotionally by giving him a good old jump scare. This increases Garfield's scarometer. Scarometer? I don't know. And if the scarometer is completely filled up, Garfield will become too afraid to continue and run away, resulting in a game over. Thankfully, collecting any of the items on the list will reduce the scarometer by a bit. This is a really neat concept. The fact that your health in this game is basically just how scared Garfield is a really funny idea. And you do have to be careful to not let Garfield get too spooked, since if you do get a game over, you have to restart from the beginning. It kind of feels like trial and error the first time you play, since you don't know what objects to click on will help you and which ones will scare you. Punishing the player for something they couldn't possibly know is, objectively, kinda dumb. But also, this game is like 20 minutes long tops, so it's really not that big a deal having to restart. The puzzles are pretty basic. Sometimes you just need to bring the right item to the right place, but other times you'll have to do some sort of mini-game, usually involving clicking things in the right order. Stuff like sorting a bookshelf alphabetically, unscrambling bats to spell Garfield's name, or literally just Simon in the music room. These, while admittedly extremely simple, add a bit more variety to the gameplay, which is appreciated. Overall, the game has a quite satisfying sense of progression, exploring the mansion, picking up items, solving puzzles, and crossing off each of the goodies one by one. Garfield's Scary Scavenger Hunt's presentation is, all things considered, pretty spectacular for a 2002 Flash game. The characters, such as Garfield himself, are all drawn very in line with the style of the comic strip at the time, and are animated quite well. The backgrounds have a bit of a simpler and more angular style, and they fit perfectly with the cartoonishly spooky vibe of the game. On that topic, obviously Garfield's Scary Scavenger Hunt employs a very light-hearted kind of scary, the Luigi's Mansion approach. It's Garfield going around a spooky house trying to collect donuts after all. But there are a few little tiny things that lean a bit further into the horror territory, and I really like that. The sound design also contributes to the spooky ambience. The unsettling music and constant roaring wind sound effect creates a memorably eerie atmosphere. And I mean constant. That wind never stops. There's a switch to turn off the music, but it doesn't turn off the wind. Yeah, that gets, a little grating after a while. Garfield will run into some familiar characters, the first of which, of course, being John. He's right outside the mansion, just hanging out, basically just here to give you some hints about the puzzles. There are a few slightly deeper cut characters and callbacks that true Garf heads will appreciate, such as Binky the Clown, Garfield's birthday being used as a combination for the safe, and even Lyman. In case you're somehow not caught up on your Garfield lore, Lyman was a character from the early days of the comic strip. He was John's roommate and Odie's original owner. He made his last speaking appearance in 1983 and then never appeared again outside of some very minor cameos. Jim Davis has explained that Lyman's purpose was to give John someone to talk to, a role gradually taken over by Garfield himself, so Lyman got left behind. In the Garfield 20th anniversary book, 20 Years and Still Kicking, Davis lists 10 joke reasons for Lyman's disappearance, with number 1 being, "Don't look in John's basement," and where is Lyman in Scary Scavenger Hunt? Chained to the wall in the mansion's basement. A lot of people like to connect these dots and theorize that John is evil and has been torturing Lyman in his basement or whatever, but the problem with that I never see mentioned is, in the game, this isn't John's house, right? It's just a random haunted house. Maybe Lyman being in the basement was a callback to the book, but nothing more sinister than that. Unless... However, the Lyman situation is baby hour compared to Scary Scavenger Hunt's actual biggest mystery. Have you ever wondered why the boxes of donuts and muffins look so much more realistic than everything else in the game? No, you haven't. Well, that's because these Garfield-branded pastries were actually real products you could buy. The company Perfection Pastries, responsible for the type of donuts or whatever you'd find at supermarkets, used to use Garfield characters on their packaging, and this game was actually sponsored by them. This is an example of product placement in a game that doesn't feel too intrusive, mostly because you might not even realize these were real if you didn't know, at least I didn't at first. But you do know what this implies, right? Hear me out. Theoretically, someone could collect all the items on this list and complete Garfield's Scary Scavenger Hunt in real life. Now, the only scary part of it would be how expired they are, but still, the fact that this scavenger hunt is technically doable in real life is hilarious to me, and I need to see someone do it. Unfortunately, doing so would be nigh impossible. Perfection Pastries is long defunct, and there's a severe lack of information about them online. There are barely even any images of their Halloween or Garfield-themed boxes. But clearly this was a pretty big brand deal for them, and it's a very interesting one to me due to just how weird and funny it is. So if anyone digs up more information about this, please let me know. And that's basically Garfield's Scary Scavenger Hunt. A short and sweet little puzzly adventure game and a must-play this Halloween for any fan of Garfield and or Scary Scavenger Hunts. Sure, on its own it's nothing groundbreaking today, but compared to the rest of the Garfield.com games, this one clearly had a lot more time and effort put into it, especially for such an old Flash game made to to advertise both Garfield and a supermarket pastry brand, this game kinda has no right being this good. But clearly the developers actually cared about making it a solid, fun game, and I commend them for that. Garfield's Scary Scavenger Hunt proved to be quite popular. So, approximately 1 year later, sometime between August 1st and October 1st, 2003, the Wayback Archives are a little sparse around this time, a sequel was released. And it's called, get ready, Garfield's Scary Scavenger Hunt 2, Donuts of Doom. Now that's a title. It's got it all. Roman numerals, alliteration, Garfield, what more could you possibly need from a game title? Right off the bat, the stakes are a bit higher this time. Instead of willingly entering the mansion in pursuit of pastries, Garfield wakes up already in the mansion's basement, and has to find a way out, while picking up the treats along the way, of course. So if you get a game over now, it's not just Garfield running away, no, he's just trapped in the basement. Forever. You did this. It should be obvious just looking at it that Donuts of Doom has a bit of a classic case of Flash game sequelitis. It's the same thing again, but a little bit different. Which I was expecting, but I gotta say, I was a little disappointed that it uses the same exact mansion as the first game. There's a new set of items, puzzles, and the goodies are all in different locations, but a new setting would have gone a long way in making the sequel really stand out. I wish there was a new place to explore, but as it is, this is fine enough. This is possibly just because I don't think I've ever played the sequel before now, but the puzzles felt a bit more complex this time around. The game in general feels more challenging. I legitimately got a game over on my first try. Shocking, I know. Donuts of Doom is also a lot heavier on the minigames, with almost all the goodies now having to be acquired through them. These are way more varied and fun than the ones in the first game. You got some whack-a-muffin, some catching stuff, copying music notes, a shell game, a broken mirror puzzle. I gotta applaud how something as basic as a shell game is presented in a really charming way. You got the skeleton guy hosting it, and when you get 3 points, he'll ask you to go best 5 out of 7. You can say no and just take the donuts immediately, or keep going and he'll stay true to his word. A true gentleman. Mouse holes have been installed all over the mansion that act as a convenient, albeit very sketchy fast travel system. I rarely use these since it's not clear at all how they work or where they take you or why. I'm sure there's some science to it, but I found it easier to just walk where I needed to go most of the time. Interestingly, some US Acres characters even appear here. Wade takes over John's role from the last game, giving you hints when you click on him, and Orson is a decapitated head in the fridge. Huh. And Lyman is back too. Also a decapitated head, in the oven this time. Poor Lyman just can't catch a break, huh? Man, this game's kinda dark. The Scary Scavenger Hunt 2 also had the Perfection Pastries product placement, but weirdly enough, they actually removed it at some point along the line, and the goodies now use generic art. This would make perfect sense. Perfection Pastries is long gone, and either the licensing deal ran out, or they just didn't want to advertise a product that's no longer on store shelves. So then why is Perfection Pastries still in the first game to this day? This brand deal once again continues to be an enigma. And now, possibly the most infamous aspect of Donuts of Doom. This official Garfield.com kids game has a kind of genuine screamer prank hidden inside it. In one of the hallways, there's a picture on the wall you can click on. It's a photo of a room filled with Garfield paraphernalia that you are told to examine very closely. The music turns off, leaving only the sound of the roaring wind. And after an uncomfortably long wait, that's hilarious. I love that, especially just how long it takes for the jump scare to actually happen. Even if you know it's coming, it can still catch you off guard. One pretty cool addition is that this game actually has a proper finale, instead of just immediately ending when you find everything. Once you've collected all 7 goodies, the bookcase door opens to reveal a maze that Garfield must find his way through to finish the game. Yeah, it's just a maze, but it's a little more climactic than nothing. And your reward for beating the game is a free screensaver. How delightfully 2003. Unfortunately, the download links don't work anymore. Well, there goes my weekend. In short, Garfield's Scary Scavenger Hunt 2, Donuts of Doom is definitely one of the games of all time. It definitely feels derivative at times with it reusing the same mansion layout, but it's been remixed in some clever ways, and its greater focus on minigames and the more involved ending make it stand out from its predecessor more so than I expected. It actually has some solid improvements. Could it have been better? Definitely. But for what it is, it's a pretty good sequel. And how could I hate it with a title like that? And that's the Garfield Scary Scavenger Hunt series. A duology of simple, spooky scavenger hunting goodness packed to the brim with charm. These games could have easily just been forgettable cash grabs to promote Garfield and grocery store brand donuts, and nobody would have bat an eye. But the devs really went the extra mile to make sure these were fun, high-quality, memorable Flash games. And they clearly succeeded, seeing as I'm talking about them 20 years later. And to a lesser extent, that goes for basically all of the Garfield.com games. Unironically, I feel like these Flash games do a really good job at replicating the charm of Garfield as a character. I feel their short and simple nature actually helps them capture the essence of a standard comic strip much better than a fully fledged Garfield game would. It's still a shame what became of Garfield.com, but I'm just glad these dumb, silly little games are being kept alive by preservation projects and a very small cult following. Now, if you'll excuse me, I gotta get back to kicking Odie off the table. I've been waiting for the moment when this gets old, and it's just not coming.